It was a quiet Friday night, and I had the apartment to myself. My roommate Adam had gone out with some friends, and I finally had the freedom to relax. I decided to indulge in some personal time, something I hadn't done in weeks due to the busyness of work and life. I had no idea how much I needed it until I slipped into the bathroom, locked the door, and let the hot water from the shower wash away the stress. I was alone, in my own space, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to let go of all the pent-up tension. But of course, as fate would have it, things didn't go as planned. After the shower, I didn't bother to put anything back on. The apartment was warm, and I felt completely free and relaxed. I sprawled out on the couch, totally naked, and started to scroll through my phone. I was in my own little world until I heard the front door creak open. Panic shot through me for a split second. Adam was home. I hadn't heard him walk in, and there I was, lying naked on the couch in the middle of the living room. My mind raced, and I froze, hoping he hadn't seen me. But it was too late. The moment I heard his voice, I knew I was in trouble. What's going on here?" he asked, his voice a mix of surprise and something else, something I couldn't quite place. I glanced over to see Adam standing by the door, looking directly at me. He hadn't expected to come home to this, and I could see his eyes widen as he tried to process what was happening. But here's the thing. What would you do in this situation? Would you act like it was no big deal, or would you let the situation spiral into something more complicated? We stared at each other for a few moments. I was embarrassed, but at the same time, a part of me didn't want to pull away. What was the real reason I hadn't thrown a blanket over myself, or at least covered up? Was it the way Adam's presence made me feel? What was this strange tension building between us that hadn't been there before? And as I looked into his eyes, I couldn't help but notice the flicker of something that hadn't been there before, something that made my heart race. Did he feel it too? Adam didn't immediately turn away, which was the last thing I expected. His eyes lingered on me for a few seconds longer than I felt comfortable with, almost as if he was trying to decide what to do next. I quickly scrambled to cover myself, but I wasn't fast enough. He raised his hand slightly, a signal for me to stop. "Don't," he said softly, his voice low and a little strained. I froze again, my mind racing. Was this really happening? Adam, my roommate, was standing there, looking at me in a way that made everything feel different. There was something new in the way he was looking at me, something I had never seen before. "Why are you just lying there like that?" he asked, his tone soft, but with a hint of curiosity. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't find the words to explain myself. Part of me was mortified, but another part, the part I had been pushing away for so long, was intrigued. Why was he still standing there, not moving, just watching me? It felt like he was waiting for me to make a move, or at least for some kind of sign that this wasn't as awkward as it seemed. But how could it not be awkward? I mean, we were roommates, friends, and now here we were, stuck in this bizarre moment where the boundaries between us felt blurred. I tried to laugh it off, attempting to ease the tension. "Sorry, I didn't expect you to be back so soon. Guess I just lost track of time," I said. But the words came out wrong, more nervous than anything. Adam didn't respond right away, but his eyes never left me. His lips parted, and I saw him take a slow breath before speaking again. "Are you sure that's all it is?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes were no longer just curious. They were intense, focused on me in a way that made my stomach flip. I felt a knot tighten in my gut as I realized what was happening. Was he actually interested? Was this something more than just an awkward moment? The silence between us stretched on, and I found myself caught between my own confusion and the sudden intensity of the situation. I'd always seen Adam as a friend, a roommate, someone I could trust. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that he was looking at me with a hunger I hadn't noticed before. What was going on here? Was he really waiting for me to make the next move? Or was I just imagining things? The air between us had shifted in a way I couldn't ignore. Adam took a slow step toward me, his eyes never leaving mine. I was frozen, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. A strange tension hung in the room, like something was about to happen, but neither of us knew how to start. Adam stopped just a few feet away, his presence overwhelming, and I felt an unfamiliar heat rising in me. I had never seen him like this before. There was a quiet intensity in his gaze, an unspoken question that hung in the air. Are you going to stop me, or are you going to let this happen? He was standing so close now, and I could feel his breath against my skin, each inhale deeper than the last. It was impossible to ignore the growing ache in my body, the heat pooling in places I had never thought to acknowledge when it came to Adam. He was my roommate, my friend, and yet, in that moment, everything about the situation felt completely different. What was I supposed to do? Was this just a moment of weakness, or was this something we both wanted? I couldn't deny that a part of me was curious about crossing that line, about seeing what might happen if we went there. Before I could fully process what I was feeling, Adam's hand reached out, brushing lightly against my arm. His touch was soft at first, almost tentative, as if he was waiting for me to stop him. But I didn't. Instead, I turned slightly toward him, my breath catching in my throat. He didn't pull away. In fact, he stepped closer, his body just inches from mine now. I could feel his warmth, his presence enveloping me. His hand slid to the back of my neck, gently pulling me toward him. And before I could even think, his lips were on mine. The kiss was gentle at first, testing, almost shy, but it quickly deepened, becoming more urgent. His hands roamed to my waist, tugging me closer, and I could feel his growing desire against me. I was completely lost in the moment, my heart racing, my hands trembling as I responded to him. Was I really doing this? Was this something I truly wanted? Or was I just caught in the heat of the moment? But as his kiss became more insistent, more desperate, I stopped thinking. Everything else faded away. The room, our friendship, the consequences, none of it mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was the heat between us, the fire that had been kindling for so long, but never ignited until now. But was this just the beginning, or was this a point of no return? What would happen after this? Would we be able to go back to how things were, or had we crossed a line that would change everything forever? The kiss deepened. For a moment, everything around us ceased to exist. My heart hammered in my chest, and I could feel Adam's hands on my body, his touch insistent and exploring. Every part of me was alive, every nerve on edge, caught between desire and the fear of crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But as his hands slid down my sides, pulling me closer, the fear started to melt away. My body was responding in ways I couldn't control, pushing me further into the moment. What was happening wasn't just physical anymore. It was something else, something raw and undeniable. Adam's hands moved lower, and without thinking, I let out a soft moan as his fingers brushed over my skin, sending jolts of pleasure through me. I wanted more. I wanted him. The realization hit me hard, but it wasn't something I could take back. Was this the lust I had been holding back for so long? Or was it something deeper, something I didn't even understand? Adam didn't give me time to think. He gently guided me back onto the couch, his lips never leaving mine. And in that moment, I knew there was no turning back. His hands were everywhere, touching, exploring, finding every inch of my skin. His breath was ragged against my ear, and I could feel his own arousal pressing against me, urging me forward. The heat between us was suffocating, and yet I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't push him away even if I wanted to. As his lips trailed down my neck, I closed my eyes, surrendering to the pleasure, the intensity of what we were doing. It was messy, it was raw, but it was exactly what I needed. We were tangled in each other, our bodies moving in a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Every touch, every kiss sent me spiraling, and I found myself lost in the moment. This was happening. No more hesitation, no more doubts. But the questions were still there, lingering at the edge of my mind. What would happen when it was over? Would we be able to look at each other the same way? Would I regret this? And as Adam's hands pulled me closer, as we moved together, I realized I didn't have answers yet. I just knew that in that moment, nothing else mattered. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true stories.